Right. So this series is going to be dedicated for just JavaScript interview preparation. So not the basic topic we will be covering. Whatever the interview question normally we face, doesn't matter if you are appearing for the React developer, Vue.js or Angular. So JavaScript is there. What technology you are appearing doesn't matter. JavaScript will be always there. Apart from backend technology, whatever the front end technologies are there, you are not going to face any interview without JavaScript, right? So interview normally will start with JavaScript because for all the front end technologies, let's say what are the frameworks we have or any future frameworks we are going to have, JavaScript will be the basic for all those frameworks. Whatever the technologies we know till now are derived or the base for all those technologies is nothing but JavaScript. So why everyone will normally have a question like if we work on Angular people will normally have this question like hoisting, closure, prototype. These types of things are like we never use in while working on any project. With doesn't matter, we use it, but you won't get to see that topics getting used in the Angular. If you are, let's say, if you are an architect or if you are above the lead level, then you will understand like, yes, these are the topic. There's like JavaScript, whatever we get asked in the interview, these topics are there, but those doesn't affect Angular, like because in Angular we normally work with TypeScript, right? But those who are working with Java with React or Vue.js, they also will feel the same. Like hoisting and closure, we normally don't come across. Like why it is being used, and this is just a theoretical or part what? No, but they have significant impact when you are actually setting up the project architecture. When you are leading the project, you have to keep these things also in mind, correct? So when you are actually working on a let's say you are just you if you are a fresher, you don't know the meaning of or importance of creating variable. If you are working on an industrial project now, if you are creating a simple variable also now, you need to justify that, like why this variable is created, what is the purpose of it. Is it like without creating this variable also we could have completed that task? All the justification you have to give, because once you create a variable, it needs some memory, because whatever the variable value you are going to store, that needs to be stored somewhere, na? So that's why you need to provide a proper justification, like why this variable was needed, correct? So that's why hoisting, closure, prototyping, prototypal inheritance, event bubbling, capturing. In Angular, again, we don't face event bubbling and capturing, but if you are really working on a scenario where event bubbling is there now, you have to divide your events on the particular element so that event won't overlap. So just like event bubbling and capturing, we know from JavaScript, it is there in Angular also. Because let's say we have a parent, and inside that again we have a child, and on parent if we add another one click event, and in the child again we add, so which event will trigger first? So obviously event bubbling is there also, correct? But it will respective to framework, it will behave differently. But basic, if you know, at least you have an understanding like how events get propagated, how event lifecycle event work, correct? So the daily sessions will be like, we will be first discussing the topic. We will try to understand how and what you need to explain in the interview, and then we will some coding snippets. Okay. Now, so first we will see what is hoisting. Now, before hoisting, like first particle, like how JavaScript execute. Let's say we have this page, right? And in this page, let's say I created a script tag. The closing tag is not there. Yeah. And let's say simple alert box is there. And we will say page loaded. Okay. So once the page load, we got the alert box. But how does this execution work, or how does Java browser execute our Java, this particular script code, or how parsing get done, right? So when we load any HTML, particular HTML page in the browser, it will load from top to bottom, right? So we're starting with head tag, then body tag, whatever the content we get, it will load line by line, correct? When it get the script, then JavaScript execution will start. So how does JavaScript execution start? So again, if you just write the simple chat GPT, just try to search the how JavaScript execute, you will get certain number of steps. right? But if you are a fresher, you won't be able to understand everything what ChatGPT will explain you. So just to summarize, uh, around let's say 5 to 6 steps are there when actually what happens when JavaScript code execute on our browser, right? So 5 to 6 steps are there. Again, those 5 to 6 steps are I will be trying to explain that in just the 2 step. Okay. So first is like when any JavaScript code is getting executed on a browser, so it will be divided into two parts. First is memory allocation. So what happens in memory allocation is like JavaScript engine, right? So JavaScript is a scripting framework. Obviously, it needs a compiler. So that is nothing but what we call as a JavaScript engine. So it is just an engine or a compiler which execute or compile JavaScript code. Whenever we say about programming, every programming language will have a compiler. Without compiler, there won't be any programming language, correct? But since JavaScript, we don't call it as a programming language, but it's a scripting language because it normally works on the browser platform, correct? So engine, a parallel term, we will call it as a compiler. So when JavaScript engine execute any JavaScript code, so JavaScript engine will first read out the whole JavaScript code, right? Whatever you have written in the script tag, it will read out. Okay. Let's try to declare some variable. Let's say var name is equal to Ram. Okay. So what we have did, we have created one variable and one alert is also there. One function is also there, print name. And in this function, we will try to access the global name. Right? So what we have created, one variable we have created, alert box we have used, and a normal function. And let's execute this function as well. So when JavaScript start executing this page, what it will does, it will scan whole script. There is a one script only. Let's say we have one more script. We can have multiple script like that. So it will scan whole script and it will check what are the variables and the function we have. Okay. What are the variables we have and what are the functions we have. So in memory allocation phase, it will allocate memory to this variable and the functions. Okay. So scans all variables and functions. And allocates to them. So whatever the variables you create, whatever the functions you create, JavaScript engine will allocate memory to all those variables because without assigning that memory, how it will reside, now where it will reside. It's not like that we are creating a variable, so here it is. No, somewhere in the memory, in the browser memory, we have to store it. We have to assign some memory location there. This, let's say reference will be named, and in that reference, this value will be stored, whatever the value we provide. So where does this memory allocation takes part? So let me just add a debugger and I will showcase you like where we actually get to see this memory. Those who have done engineering or let's say MC or BCA background, everyone know, like I don't know about BCA or MCA, but engineering does have a what do we say, subject that is microprocessor. So how microprocessor executes, how registers are there, how memory allocation happens over there. So from microprocessor, we used to know like stack memory, heap memory. Just the same concept we have when we, because browser is nothing but an application which is running on a Windows platform or a Mac or any operating system. So microprocessor is nothing but connected to your operating system. So whenever your application means browser is running, browser will have an access to that microprocessor. And in that microprocessor, there will be registers and memory location, which browser will use to store whatever the memory, whatever the variable or the functions you create now. So browser uses those microprocessor registers and they will use to store the data over there. Okay. So now I have added the debugger rates. So let's just reload. Now just pay attention how JavaScript execute. So here you can see a global stack is there. So this global, you can see over here in the sources tab, you will get to see global over here. There are so many, it's, if we see like this looks like an object, right? Key value pair data is there. But if you see the global, inside that we have so many things. And in front of global, we have window. Window means current page. Okay. So whatever we have in this current page, some properties or some functions are by default provided by JavaScript engine, like alert, confirm box, correct? Set timeout, set interval. These are the things which are already available in the JavaScript. So JavaScript will get those prototype or the whatever the default things JavaScript provide, and it will push to your current page object. Okay, just a DOM object we will consider for now. Now, so this is nothing but your memory. Okay, so like stack memory, or you can say heap memory, whatever it is. But this is nothing but looks like your memory. So key value pair kind of data we will store. So here you can see we have created variable name. So if we scroll down, these are some default function which are already provided by JavaScript. So MNO, where it is in. So here you can see you got name, and inside that value is RAM. We have created one function that is print name. So on P, you will able to find that also. So see print name. So here complete function will be stored. Okay. You won't be able to see that how we saw that value as a RAM, but it's a functions. But whole value of that function means whatever lines of code you have written exactly will get stored into the memory. Okay. So whatever the functions or the variable you create, that will be assigned a memory into your browser. This is how JavaScript will execute. So in the first phase, which we said like memory allocation. So what JavaScript engine will scan your page, and whatever the variable and the function you create, JavaScript engine will assign memory to all the variable and the function. This is first phase. After that, after allocation, after memory allocation, the second step will execute, means line by line code execution. So by now everyone will know, doesn't matter you are an experienced or the fresher, you know basic of JavaScript. So JavaScript execute line by line means synchronous. It won't wait for one line to complete its execution. It will execute line by line. Correct. So first memory allocation, it will allocate all the memory location for the variables or the function whatever you declared in your JavaScript, right? After that, it will execute one by line. First line this will execute, then this will execute. This won't execute because at the initial only this will have allocated. Okay, then this line will execute. If it found this function already present, then this function will execute. Means whatever the lines of code we have in this function. This is how JavaScript execute. Okay. Now comes hoisting. So let's get rid of this. Let me just create proper name where session name JS interview. Okay. Where session time 9 p.m. So see what we have created. We have created two variables. Now let's try to access this variable. So console.log session time also we will access, just like that. Session name also. So now if we save, you get to see the value which we have stored in the variable. It is very simple because we have created a variable, we have stored some value into that, and after variable declaration, we are accessing it. So obviously we can access the value we have stored in this variable. But if we move this accessing value at the top, so now session name I am trying to access before variable initialization. So on the line number 13, actually we are creating a variable and initializing the value also, right? But on line number 11, before this line is getting executed, we are trying to access the value of session name. So now let's save it. So now here you can see session name has printed undefined. So now this thing, like we are trying to use the variable before its initialization or before its creation, This is only possible in JavaScript. There is no another language where we can do something like this. Means before creating variable, we cannot access that variable anywhere else. Just JavaScript has this kind of thing where we can access the variable value before its declaration also. Right? Now, why undefined? Now let's try to add a debugger at the first line. Before executing anything else, let's try to add a debugger. Now let's try to see it properly. So now remember, like first time we have said like memory gets allocated. So now that's why it was important, like how JavaScript work. If you understand that, then you will be you can explain properly what is hoisting. Don't just say when you are like till now, whenever I also take the interview, now everyone, doesn't matter what kind of experience candidate has, even though if he's having 3 years or 4 years, or even though he has 8 years or 10 years, still many of the developers, or we can understand, like when we are working with Angular, he might have a great knowledge in Angular, but obviously on a company level, we also get to know, like we first have to ask JavaScript. That's why we also have to ask the JavaScript question first, correct? But even though 8 to 9 years or 10 years, for from 5 years also, everyone will try to say the normal definition you will get on the internet, like lexical scope and outer scope. Don't use this word. It's very simple. See, whenever you are explaining any topic to your interviewer, you have to explain him in a way that he will also understand, like you know the concept or not. If you just provide the theoretical definition to him, he will understand you have just what you can say, you have just got the definition for internet and you are just informing him. But if you really understand that concept, now you won't tell them that definition whatever you know from the internet, correct? So if you know like how it works actually, how that undefined value gets assigned, then you will properly, then you won't use that internet definition, you will create your own. So that's what everyone is looking for. Just come up with your own definition, right? So now, so see, we are on the line number 12. So now if we scroll down, the variable name is session name. So let's go to yes. So here you can see we got the session name. So as I said, JavaScript execute in two phases, memory allocation and then line by line code execution. So memory allocation phase is completed. So here comes the actual part coming related to hosting. When the memory allocation phase is there, so what JavaScript engine does, whatever the variables are there, it will allocate undefined value to that. Means in first phase, memory allocation, it will allocate whatever the variables you have created, again with var. Okay, we will come to late and constant, but just for remember, whatever the variables we create in first phase, JavaScript allocate memory to all those variables. But line by line code is not executed it. So how JavaScript will know, na, like what is the value this variable is going to hold? So by default, JavaScript engine will assign undefined value to it. So here you can see undefined value. Okay. So now if anyone asks you like what is hoisting, so you first have to explain like how JavaScript works. Now in memory allocation phase, JavaScript will engine assign undefined value to the variable, right? So that's why before variable initialization also, we can access the variable, like here, code didn't break, but what we got, undefined value. So from where we got that undefined value? Because JavaScript engine has assigned undefined value. So that is what you are seeing over here, right? Now let's execute line by line. So here you will get undefined, correct? Now this line will execute. Now this, whatever the value we have, undefined value, get replaced by this value because we are assigning a value. So whatever the value JavaScript assigned that is undefined, now it will get replaced by the value we are passing. So now see, now let's go back again in the global scope. So now here you can see that undefined value got replaced by whatever the value you provide. Got it? So this is nothing but hoisting. So see, if we try to access this variable again. So first time it will print undefined because by default it will have an undefined value. Then this variable will execute, variable will have the value JS interview. Then we are trying to access, obviously we will get the value because that undefined value got replaced by the value we have provided. So this is simplest thing, hoisting. Okay. So hoisting is a phenomenon. Again, doesn't matter what definition you learn, try to create your own definition, which you can inform confidently. Whenever you are appearing for the interview, all matter is the confidence. With what confidence you are explaining the answer. Many of you might have put together fake experience and you might have got a job also. So you also know like how you have cleared the interview. When you add a fake experience, you have not actually worked. You might have worked in an institute, or you might have uh, created your own project, but you got that confidence because you have actually worked, right? No one can add a fake experience without working on any personal project, or without working on an institute project, or without any internship. No one can add a fake experience. You will get caught, because that confidence won't be there if you are just learning, or if you are just remembering all the answer. That confidence won't be there. So these are, see, hoisting, closure, prototype, then ES6 feature. These are 6 to 7 questions will be there. Every JS, every developer, front-end developer are going to face this question. So just come up with your own definition, whatever suits you, whatever you are comfortable with the words, don't try to use the fancy word. The fancy words are like execution context, lexical scope. I will come to this. Like someone will ask you like what execution context and what is lexical scope. We will come to this. But coming back to hoisting, try to create your own definition. As I explain you, like what is hoisting, it is like with before variable initialization also we can access those variable. But that variable will have undefined value. Why undefined value? Because JavaScript engine will assign an undefined value in the memory phase allocation. Once that line execute, then we can access the value whatever that variable hold. This is the simplest definition of hoisting. Without, means before initialization, before variable declaration also we can access that variable. Obviously it won't have that value, it will have the value undefined, but we can access. But this phenomenon is not present in another language. Let's say if we talk about Java or .NET, we cannot access a variable before initialization. Obviously they will throw the compilation error, but in JavaScript we have that facility where we can access the variable with before initialization also. Now you will have a question like, then what is the, there is no use now. Before initialization we are able to access this and it will have an undefined value. But still, why JavaScript might have provided functionality like this, correct? So uh, see, when we talk about front end development, so JavaScript developers are very apart, right? We work on Angular, we work on React, or we work on Vue.js. What we are working with a particular framework. But JavaScript developers are something else. There are specific developer who works only on JavaScript. Some of you might be working on a special JavaScript project where all these concepts are purely views. So there are various scenarios where we need to access the value before its initialization also. There are scenarios. Okay, so that's why these concepts are there. So even if we think like these are the stupid concept, like we are not going to use a variable before its initialization, but they have created a language like that. So obviously there is a reason. So that's why in any interview, we get to ask this question. So that's why we need to learn it and how it actually works behind the scene. If you understand that, like how in global context, you can see like on that line, you will get undefined. Once that line execute, that undefined value get replaced by whatever the value you provide. If this concept is clear to you, you can clearly explain in the interview, like what is hoisting. Now you don't need to go through the interview and learn any language, learn any answer, and you don't have to do that. If you understand this now, and if you create a definition of your own, interviewer will also know, like, yes, you know the concept. He won't question you. See, I also do the same thing. If I will start from I will normally in JavaScript, I will start from prototype, because once I say now what is prototype, half of the candidate confidence will get over with that question also, because no one expect the prototype question as first. But we need to, because once I approve the candidate, again my superior is going to take one more interview. So I cannot select any candidate with blindfolding my eyes, right? I also need to evaluate properly. Because again, even if we clear that candidate now, our client will reject. So there is no sense to just evaluate the candidate, and even if he is strong in Angular, we can make him selected. No, we cannot do like that. We need JavaScript and Angular also, both of the technology, because client is going to evaluate on JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and Angular or React, anything, correct? So that's why JavaScript is that much important. And you might also face, like in any interview, whether it is Angular, React, in React, they will not focus on the React, but JavaScript is very first priority for them. If we talk about Angular, JavaScript will be second priority, because while working with Angular, we don't normally come across this concept, correct? But still, to clear the interview, we have to go through this concept. Okay. Now coming back to, yeah, function also. So I forgot that. So we have seen the variable, like how it is behaving with variable. Now let's try to create a function. So function, let's say print session name. Okay, console dot log, and here we will try to access the session name variable. Now, on line number 20, we have created the function. So obviously after line number 20, we can execute it. So see. Continue. So here you can see on line number 21 means once we execute this function, we are able to access the variable, and we are able to run the or execute the function as well. But if we do the same thing, if we move this function execution at the top line, what will happen? Okay, so let's see. So see, at line number 23, we got undefined. So this is coming from this here. So this function got executed. So when it comes to normal variable, when we try to access the variable before its initialization, we can access that, but the value will be undefined. This will be in case of normal variable. But in case of function, we can access the function or we can execute also. It is not like in function, in memory location, we get the undefined value. No, when it comes to hoisting with function, whatever the definition or the declaration we have put in that inside that function now, all will be stored. So before initialization of that or before declaration of that function also, we can execute the function. In case of variable declared with var, we can access the variable, but the variable value will be undefined. But in case of function, we can access the value. Means we can execute the function normally. Doesn't matter like this function you are putting it over here or here, it will behave the same. Okay. Clear everyone? Anyone has any doubt? Then we can check the difference between var let and the arrow function. Let me just unmute. Yeah, you can unmute now. Anyone has any question till now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek.
Can you use the function declaration inside that function only? Variable declaration. Variable initialization.
Means
in the
this
function
variable
scope. Yeah, function scope.
This?
In the function
like
scope.
This?
Can you change the name? Okay.
Yeah, see, the
Yeah,
various differences, like various operation like this now we will see in the code snippet. Okay, so many code snippets are there covering all this kind of scenario. I got your question, but just wait for some time. Okay, anyone else has question? Are you clear like what is hosting now, what you have to explain in the interview, and why this question is important?
Yeah, so this session is recorded or not?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we will see how hosting will differ in case of arrow function and when we declare the variable with var, let and const. Okay. Now let's see that. Now again, when it comes to hosting, when you provide the definition of hosting, you provide the definition. After that, you need to specifically explain hosting will work if we create the variable with var and if we create the function with normal function. Because If we create the variable with let and const, and if we create the arrow function, hosting won't work. Okay. So see now, let's create a let full name. Amir, can you not do that? Don't use that. What that thing Zoom app is there now. Don't use that. So let's create a variable that is with let. Okay. We are storing some value. Now, as we know, the concept of hosting before variable initialization also we can access it. Now, let's try to access it. So on line number 25, we are trying to access it. So see. Now, here you can see it will throw you the error. Now see the difference. When we were trying to access the variable which is declared with var, before its initialization, it was not breaking the code. But if we try to access the variable which is declared with let or const, before its initialization, code will break. So you will get the error cannot access full name before its initialization. So very self-explanatory error is there. So this error now again, like in interview, they will ask you vice versa also. They will provide you this error and they will ask you like when this error will come. So you have to remember you will get this error if you are trying to access the variable which is declared with let or const. Anyone can ask anything. Okay. So just be prepared. Now, so as I said, like hoisting doesn't support let and const. Again, there is a reason why it doesn't support because let scoping thing, like because var will have a function or the global scope, but let has a block scope only. So when we come to the function now, we will see that like what is the block scope between where and the where and the let. Okay. Just like that, if we create a const middle name, let me just copy this. Now, can anyone tell me like, will this line execute? Line number 27 will execute or not? Will it execute line number 27? Obviously no, because on this line only code will break. So whatever the lines of code we have now, it won't execute, right? So we need to comment this. Now if we save, so now why it doesn't get executed? Middle name, why we are able to access it? Let me just change the name. Okay, no. Full name we have printed it out. So see, here also same thing. So if we create the variable with let or const, you cannot access those variable before its initialization because it doesn't support hosting. So let and const doesn't support hosting. Just like that, arrow function. So let's say var print full name console.log. Let's try to access the full name. Now again, we have to comment this line because here it will break. And this we will try to execute, let's say at the start. Okay. Now let's add a debugger and let's see what happens in case of a function. So our function name is, how does it look like this? It look like it's a norm. If just forget about this, but how does it look? It's a normal function, but in this function, we are storing a function, right? So if we forget about this code, it's a normal function. So in memory phase, what might be happening? This variable is declared with var. So it will store a undefined value, right? So here you will have an undefined value, but this we can access. See, there is a catch when it comes to arrow function. If we try to access this like this, okay? So this is like we are trying to access the variable. So here we will get undefined because it's just a variable declared with var. So what is the concept of hoisting? We can access the variable before its declaration. So we will get undefined value. But here we are trying to execute print full name, which is undefined at this line. So if it is something undefined, we cannot execute, na? Right? So here you can see the error now. Let me just continue. So see, what is the error? Print full name is not a function because it is an undefined. Now we cannot execute something which is undefined. So that's why error is there, like print full name is not a function. Okay. So it doesn't matter. And this is declared with where. Let's try to declare with let or const, doesn't matter anything. Print, let's say middle name. Okay. Now again, remember what was the error we used to get over here, just like that error we should get. So now before this, I will try to execute it. So see, cannot access print middle name. Print middle name, we know like it's a function. But if we see this is just a normal declaration. Now, once this line execute, then we are storing function inside this variable. But till then, it's a normal variable. So we will get the error just like we used to get with this. So when it comes to hoisting, we can access the variable before its initialization, but we will get the undefined value. But that variable or function should be, function declaration should be a normal function and variable should be declared with var. Because if you declare the variable with let and const or the arrow function, those doesn't support hoisting. This is the definition you should explain. If he asks you to write something code, you can write anything. If you properly do the practice, you don't need to practice again. If you understand the concept, you will straightforwardly write the code as well. Correct? So this is the basic thing about hosting. Now let's see the coding snippet. Let me just close this. So some coding snippets I have already copy pasted. Let me just run this. Okay. Now, let me just comment remaining. Okay. Now see, this is very simple. So I have arranged the questions like simple to hard. Okay. So we will start with the basic, very simple question. Then gradually we will moving to the little bit hard questions. So this is very simple. So on the first line, we are trying to access, which is a normal function. And here also we are trying to access the variable which is declared with var. So this will execute same. Hello will be printed. And here we will get undefined. So let's save and check. So here you can see hello is printed because this is a normal function. So it will execute properly. And this is a variable which is declared with var, sorry, x. And we are trying to access the value. So as the hoisting concept tells us, it will have an undefined value. So that's why at line number 13, we have got undefined. And then line number 16, we have got hello. This is very easy one. Let's try the second one. So here you can see first is like arrow function. So this is a normal variable declared. Still, we are storing an arrow function. This is also another. So here you can see this is an arrow function. This is, we are storing a normal function inside a variable. Okay. So if we try to access this, so on line number 21. So here you can see arrow function is not a function. Here also you will get the same error. Let's comment this. And we are trying to access the second function. So this is arrow function, we agree. But here also, we are trying to store a function inside a variable. Still, it is the same because unless this line execute, it won't understand like in this variable, we have stored a function. So we cannot access this because on this level, on this line number 22, this is a normal variable. So it will have an undefined value. So we cannot execute which is undefined. So that's why we are getting error function is variable. So see, this was one of my friends shared it in EY company. They have asked him to this. If when we learn JavaScript or when we are preparing for the interview, we will prepare like this. But everyone is interviewers are also very what do we say, smart nowadays. Everyone know like there are so many websites are there where you get so many questions already what are in the market. You know the scenario and you know the answer, right? So they will try to just twist the scenario somewhat. So here you can see Here they have stored a normal function. Now, while understanding or while preparing, we know, like if we try to access the arrow function, we will get error. But here they have stored a normal function. So sometimes we get confused. No, it's a normal function, so it should execute. No. What is the hoisting concept? When it's created, it is just a normal function. Unless this line execute, now it won't understand what is inside this. So on this line, it is just a variable and it has the value undefined. So we cannot execute something which is undefined. Clear? So it doesn't matter if it is a normal function or if it is an arrow function or if it is a normal function and we are storing into a variable, so we cannot access it. Okay. So let's move on to next. Now here. So see, we have created a variable where x is equal to 10. And after that, we are trying to access it. So obviously 36 line number will have a value 10. Then we have a if condition. Now in if condition, true is there. So obviously this if block will execute. Again, here is another function. What is this function? This is self-executing function. So here you can see this function doesn't have any name, and after that we have a round parenthesis. So this is self-executing function. We don't have to execute it. We don't have to invoke it. It will execute by default. So here we are trying to access the value of x. Now here you can see in outside global scope also we have a variable which is having name x, and inside this function also again value is x. So when you have a same variable name in the global scope and in the function scope also again the same variable. So this x is different and this x is different. And inside this function, if you are trying to access the x now, it will point to this. So what happens first, if this is not there, now, it will access this x value. Because in this function scope, we don't have any variable matching with the name x. So it will try the global scope. It will try to find the global scope if we have a variable. Then it will get 10. But now in this function scope, it has a variable x. So this x will point to this. Okay, then we have x. So what will be the output of this? Obviously 36 line number. Then as JavaScript execute line by line. And this is a self-executing function. We don't have to execute, we don't have to invoke it. So this line will execute. So 10, 20, and 10. So let's save it. So now here you can see 10, 20, and 10 output is there. Right? So whenever you get the JavaScript coding circuit, now again in the interview, those who are going to face the interview now or those who are preparing, always understand there is a way. First, they will ask you the theoretical question. Once the JavaScript theoretical question is done, then they will move on to this. They will provide you some snippets and they will ask you the output, and they won't let you execute. They will ask you to share the screen and they will put the coding snippet in the chat box or somewhere, and they will ask you to explain the output. Not just say like what will be the output, and you have to explain it also. So that's why like this is the self-executing function. It won't wait, right? So this should be your output, 10, 20, and 10. Let's comment it. Let's see the next one. Now, here. So here is something again. See, if you understand the hoisting concept very clearly now, then you, when evaluating any coding snippet, now you just need to remember the basic thing. How hoisting work, or how I have not included any snippets related to Clojure. But again, whenever you are evaluating any coding snippet, now you need to remember the basic thing, like how JavaScript work, what is hoisting, and what is Clojure. If you keep in mind these things, you will properly explain or properly understand the any coding snippet, because they will change the scenario. Okay, so see here. So first, if condition is there and in if condition true is there, so obviously this if block will execute. So here, what we are trying to do in this if block, we are trying to access the variable inner var. Okay. Now on this line, this inner var, this if block is in the global context, right? And here we have this variable. So here it will be undefined, because before initializing this variable, we are trying to access it. This is undefined. After that, this will initialize. So this variable will have the value. This is I am hosting. And again, once this if block is getting, after execution of this if block, again, we are accessing. Sometimes you get confused, like this variable is declared inside this. Correct? So we have an assumption like you might get confused. Like this is inside the curly bracket, so you won't have an access. So here also you will get undefined or variable is not defined. It's not like that. This if block is in the global scope, right? So obviously we have an access to inner var also. Okay. Then this is a normal function. Now same scenario. This we have put it. Let me just comment this first. Then we will say the second scenario. So here you can see, here we have got undefined. Here also we have printed I'm hosting, and here also. So this inner var you can access outside if block also, because this is if block, but it's in the global only. So obviously this variable is declared in the global. Doesn't matter. Just we have declared this inside the if block doesn't mean it has a scope inside this only. Okay. Now same kind of scenario is there, but we have include that if condition inside a function now. So now see, inside this function, we have created a variable var funvar. Okay. And here, before calling this function, we are trying to access the funvar. Now this funvar is declared inside the function. So obviously we won't be, we cannot access this variable now, because this variable is declared inside the function. So we cannot have an access to a variable which is declared inside a function. So now here we will get the error because funvar is not defined, because there is no variable in the global scope. Because this, so when we say about scoping of the var, so var is a global scope or function scope, right? Currently, this variable is declared inside a function scope, so it will have a function scope. So we cannot access variable outside the function. So here it will get undefined. But in this scope, it was this if block is in the global scope. That's why this variable was moved to the global scope. Again, just the basic is there, but just to confuse, some interviewer will change the coding little bit. Okay. If you answer this properly, they will put this question. So sometimes you might get confused. Okay. So always take a time, evaluate properly. Okay. Then only answer, because in an interview, let's say 30 to 35 minutes are there. After, let's say every 20 seconds, we get a question, we answer it. So we are in a hurry, right? So whenever we get a snippet, then immediately we try to answer. No, if it is a theoretical question, you don't have to think, because you already remember those theoretical part. But when it comes to coding snippet, now take a time, properly evaluate it, then only answer it. Okay. And again, while evaluating, remember all hoisting and closure. Just two things, if you keep in mind clearly, you will clearly understand this. Okay. Let's move on to next. Again, this is also very simple. So see, here, this is very simple. Okay. I also 2 years back, this kind of question was asked to me, and I also explained the wrong answer. So here you can see we have a variable. Inside that variable, we have stored a function. Okay, so we have a variable with name foo. Again, there is a function with name foo. So what might be happening? Now we have a variable which is having a function which is having a foo name, and we have a normal function also which is having a foo name. So what might be happening? Okay, so see how JavaScript executes synchronous. So first, this line will execute. By this line, in this variable, we will have this function. I am a function expression. Then this line will execute. On this line, what might be there in this foo variable, we are replacing that with this function. Because memory variable name will be the same, no? Index referencing will be same. So we are changing whatever we have in that memory location with this. So when we execute this is referencing to this, not this, because this, whatever we have stored in this line number, it will get replaced by this, because same name we are assigning. Okay. So now if we execute, I'm function declaration. No, wait. Oh, let me execute again. Now see, while explaining, I also got confused. Let's try to change the name. I'm function expression only coming. Let's try to execute this. So see, it doesn't matter how much experience you have, JavaScript is a thing. If you are not working regularly, you will surely forget. So let's try to analyze this. So on this line, Let's execute this line first. Let's try to add a. Let's try to call this function twice. Then we will understand what is actually getting stored. So where is foo? Okay. So we have foo2. Let's try to execute it. Okay. Now if we try to console it, console.log, we are trying to access the variable. So here you can see we are getting whatever it is stored. I'm function expression, the first line. Okay. After that, again, let's try it. Same thing is there. How and okay, I got it now. Let me just uncomment. Anyone has got it? How it is behaving now? You can unmute. Can anyone explain like why it is behaving like this? Because in foo variable only this is getting stored.
Memory allocation.
No. Can you explain a little bit properly? Memory allocation means? Why it is not overriding this?
Because
Anyone?
of normal function and function expression.
No, in heap
No.
memory, we store the function like
See. Now, again, coming to basic part. How
can have the memory space, right?
see, I got it. Yeah, Lu, you are correct. So see, again coming to basic, how JavaScript execute? JavaScript execute in two phases, memory allocation and then line by line code execution. Then hoisting. So when memory executes, so it will check the variable name. Okay. So when it see like there is a two variable, there is a variable function, means we have a variable, we have a normal variable and we have a function also. So obviously there won't be two things. Only one instance will be there with name foo2. And at the in the first execution means when the code line is not executed, it means, let me just explain you clearly now. And if we try to access this before its initialization, okay. So now see the difference. Let's remove this. So now what we are trying to do over here. So when this 65 line execute, okay, let's first start. Okay, so see, first what it has printed, declaration. Means when we call this function at line number 65, it has executed this. Okay, but when we call at the line number 75, it has executed this. So if it was there now, I also would have remembered like, no, it will work like this, but I also got confused. Okay, so see, when memory execution is when this script is in memory execution, this foo, it will have a memory, and according to our definition, what it will does, it will check all the memory, all the variable and the function, and at the last it will check first this. Okay, so here this foo variable have undefined value, then it will get this function, but that undefined value will get replaced by this function. So on this line, in this variable foo, we will have a function. Okay, but then line by line code will execute, then this line will execute, then that function will get replaced by this. That's why on line number 74, we will get function expression. If we don't have this now, and if we try to like this, only this will execute, because in memory execution, first in this memory, foo memory, we will have this function. But this line will execute. So whatever we have stored in this function, it will get replaced by this. So that's why here on line number 70, this line one executed. Now, after that in here, we will get a reference of this function. Now understood?
Oh, sorry, sir, I didn't get it. Repeat one more time.
See. Just
It's
pay
little bit
attention now.
confused.
Yeah. I also know. So see, if we are trying to access the same function over here, what it is going to print? This. Why? Because this line of code executed, na? Once we execute this line, both of this line are executed, correct? So this variable will means in the memory location in foo, we have this function. Okay. When we execute when we JavaScript code executes, function doesn't execute, right? It won't execute this directly. It will execute this because function will have it has been executed in the memory allocation phase only, at the starting only, before lines of execution started, it has already executed, right? So this line execute, then we are trying to access it. So in this variable function foo variable, we have stored this. So currently on this line, when we are trying to access the foo variable, we are trying to execute the foo on this line was executed. So in this foo, we have the function, which is having storing expression. Okay. But now just pay attention. If we try to access this before this, okay, here at line number 65, this line is not executed yet. Now in the memory location, what do we have in foo? This.
Undefined.
Now understood?
Undefined. Yes.
Right? So you see, I also got confused. So that's why whenever you are actually preparing for the interview, it is very, what do we say, mandatory to go through all the things. Even though you think like, yes, I know this thing, but doesn't matter. By seeing it code, you might get confused. Okay. Just like in front of you also, I got confused. Okay. So I thought like this was very easy, but it turned out to be complicated. Okay. So that's why how JavaScript execute, the understanding of it is very important. Okay. So if that is clear now, doesn't matter whatever lines of code, whatever types of scenario and whatever interview or coding snippet will provide, you can surely understand and explain him properly. If you understand how JavaScript execute, memory allocation, then line by line execution. That's it. Okay. Everyone
But-
clear now?
Sir,
Yeah.
someone commented that in hosting the functions taking first priority, then the variables. Because of that, it is
No. When we talk about hosting, there is nothing related to priority. There is nothing regarding priority. Nothing else.
okay.
How can be there a priority? Na? See, we have on this line. What do we say? See, if this was not there now, so this is the only variable, right? So here, what would have, what it might be there? What might be the error we might have got over here? If this function was not there, what might be the output of this?
Undefined.
No, we cannot undefined execute. Foo is not a function, na? Because on this line, what is foo? It's a normal variable, na?
No.
Correct. But since this is there, now after executing means after this variable, see, in memory allocation, first it has got this variable var foo. In that he has stored undefined. Then it has found this function. So the undefined value got replaced by this function. Understood?
Yes.
So that's why there is nothing related to priority when it comes to hoisting. Okay. If you answer something like that, then again he will ask, like, explain me. Then you won't be able to explain it because there is nothing related to priority. It's just basic how memory executes. Understood? Okay. Let's move ahead. How many are there? Oh my God. Let's complete it quickly. So see, normal function is there, and after that we are executing the function. So again, if block is there. If it is false, obviously it won't go inside. So again, this is very basic, but sometimes we get confused like this variable is inside the X, so we cannot access it outside. No, obviously this again, var will have a function or a global scope. Now this var is inside a if block, but if block is inside the function, so it will have a block scope, means function scope. So we can access var this X variable outside the if condition also. So X here also it is undefined because this if doesn't got executed. No? So this line doesn't got executed. So this variable will have a value undefined only. And why? We are trying to access the value. So see here, we are trying to access the value of X after its initialization, but this line doesn't execute. So still we are trying to access the value before its initialization kind of scenario is there. So here someone will ask, someone will try to confuse you in hosting, like, no, we are trying to access the variable value after the initialization. Na? So how it should be undefined, but this line doesn't get executed. Na? So hoisting JavaScript engine has added undefined values. So it will stays like that, right? So it's a basic, but in the interview, you might get confused. Okay. And the last, after initialization, we are trying to access it. So we will get 100. Right. Let's move. Okay. So again, scenario where we have the same name at the top and same name inside the another function. So see, we have a print function. Inside that we have a variable name, right? Inside this function, again, we have a function. Now this kind of scenario. That's why I informed like earlier, like when we comes to hoisting and closure in Angular, we don't have to face kind of, because in Angular, we work with TypeScript. In a function, we don't create another function, right? So that, but these are interrelated. So doesn't matter you work on Angular or React, anyhow, you have to prepare it. So we have a outer function, which has a name print. Inside that, again, we have a function print name. Now, and after this function, we have the first console, that is, we are trying to access the name. So now this name will point to this variable, because again, the global scope means function scope. So in function scope, we have the variable. Then we are executing the print name. So in print name, this will be over there. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to change it's not a new variable. We are just trying to change the variable name where we have declared it. So here we will get the JavaScript. So here we will have the Angular, and now inside, once we execute this function, then this line will execute, and then we will get the JavaScript. So let's save it. So now you can see over line number 98, we will get the initial value, and in the function, we are changing the variable value, then we will get the new value and JavaScript. Clear? Let's see the next. Right. So now again, here you can see we have created a variable, then we have initialized that. So see, when it comes to variable creation, if you are very clear, you will understand. So this is like we have created a variable, but we have not assigned a value. Then at next line, we have assigned the value. Then we are calling this function. And in this function, we are again creating a variable var num1. So this num1 is different and this num1 is different, because this num1 is again inside this function, we are creating a variable. So this num1 is different. It is in the global scope, and this one will have a function scope. So in if condition, this num1 is we are trying to access it. Okay. So this is because we have just created it. So we have not initialized the value. So it is undefined, right? So here it won't go inside this because it is undefined. So here we will have a value undefined only, right? So here don't get confused, like this num1 is already there. This num1 have the value 10. No, it will consider this num1 inside this if block. So this won't consider this. Again, this role is like so many coding snippets are like there, where you will have a same name declared in the global scope, and in the same name we will have you will get to say in the function also. So always remember, if you have a variable with two names, same name in the global or in the function, both will have a different scope. So many different scenarios are there. But if you understand that, if you keep in mind that variable which are declared in global and the function will have a different scope, you will surely understand it. Okay. Let's move. Again, so many questions are there. In my interview application, there are some of them only I have taken it over here just to understand. Okay. So now here you can see we have created a variable where x is equal to 21. Then we have created another variable, and in that variable we have stored a function. And in this function, we are trying to access the x value. So obviously we can access it, and then this doesn't make any sense. Obviously it will print 21. No, it is print. Okay, sorry. Again, see, obviously this x will point to this, right? So it won't point to this x value, because in the function we have another variable with x. And since this line is not executed, so here you will get undefined. Okay. So it's very confusing. Every time you might get it wrong. So if you are in a hurry, you will end up saying the wrong answer. So just take a moment. Okay. In front of you also, I'm doing the same. You will also do the same in the interview. So while answering, just think again, and then you will be correct. Okay. Just don't be in a hurry. Let's see the next one. Okay. So this question was asked to me in Globant. So if anyone from you has given interview in the Globant, so they might also face the same question, because there are Hemant and Nikhil is working. They have certain set of question they will ask to every developer. If you have having 5+ experience, no, you will get interviewed by Hemant and Nikhil. They are sitting there from last 10 years. So they have certain set of questions. So everyone, for every in every interview, more than 5 experiences there, no, they will ask this question. So see, we have a variable. In that variable, we have stored a username. Then we have a function. Then we are trying to access the variable name. So here, obviously, this line is in the global scope. So here we will try to access the Hemant. So first, here you can see Hemant is printed. Then we have a print function. Then we are calling B, right? Then once you execute the B, it will come to this. Then we have set timeout. Now in set timeout, we have 0, right? Now there are so many questions related to set timeout where set timeout will be 0. Don't get confused. Doesn't matter if it is 0 or 1000, it will execute after some time only. Okay. So here in this function, we have set timeout, and in set timeout, we have called this. So first, this print function won't get execute. First, this line will execute. Again, we have console.log name, username. But again, in this function, we have username already created. So it won't point to this, it will point to this. But at this line is not executed. So here we will get undefined. This line number 130, right? After that, this set timeout will execute, and it will execute this print function. And in this print function, it will execute Hemant. So that's why here also you get a Hemant. Here you will get undefined, and here you will get Hemant again, the global variable. Okay. Let's try the next one. So this is like, see, again, set timeout. Those who don't know the set timeout is a kind of a thing which is provided by JavaScript engine. If you have some code that you need to execute after some time, so you can make use of a set timeout. So see, print function is there, and we are calling the print function. So over here, first we have the set timeout, and in the set timeout, we are trying to access the value of name, and we have said 1000 means 1 millisecond. And after that, we are creating the variable, and we are assigning the variable also. If we say the hosting concept, so before declaration or initializing the variable, we are trying to access it. But this line will execute after some time. But by that time, this line will be executed. So that's why over here we get to access the value. It's not undefined. Okay. Doesn't matter if you put 0 over here, still you will get to access the value. See. Because set timeout doesn't matter if you provide 0 or 1000 or 2000. It will take some time. There are so many interview questions, JavaScript code snippet where 0, 1000, 10,000, something will be there, and they will ask you the output. Even if it is 0, it will take some time to execute. Okay. And by that time, this line will be executed. So in this variable, you will have the value demo. So that's why you will be able to access it. Clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So anyone has any question? Just a quick one we can go through.
Okay, can you please share
Yes,
those
sir.
questions in the chat, please?
Yeah, it is already there. I will just, this is the site. Here you can see all the questions. You just have to go to JS interview. According to various companies, I have just filtered it out. All the questions you have seen now are from here only. Just go to JavaScript also and Hoisting. You will get to see so many questions. Whatever the question we have discussed now, it is from this only. Some only I have taken. Again, there are so many. Okay. Company-wise question you will be able to see in. You just have to select the JS interview. So company related, you will be able to see over here. Okay. I'm just sharing it in the chat, so you will have access.
Chetan, could you please share this link as well?
Yeah. In the group also, I will share it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow we will see the closure. Likewise, if you have some questions now like this, which is not in my application, you can share it or we can discuss in tomorrow question also. Okay.
And Chetan, one more thing, like, could you please make one session as well related to like how Angular load behind the scene and like authorization and authentication and this intercept related things? Because I have been giving the interviews on Angular, so this kind of questions I would able to see. So these
Authorization,
kind of
authentication.
things.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, how it will work behind the scene, kind of these things like
Okay,
JW
so let's
2.2.
let's complete the JavaScript. After that, we will take one session on authorization and authentication. We will
Yeah,
see role-based authentication also, how according to different role we get to different menus like that. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Fine. Thank you. Thanks for joining.